Bit of a lighter episode we have this week. We will be discussing some of the excerpts that have been released for the High Republic series ahead of their January and February release, Light of the Jedi, as well as Adventures featuring Yoda. This is Dyad and the Force. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dyad and the Force. I am your host, Element 7.
Hello, and I am your co-host, Star Choco, and I'm super excited this week because I don't know, High Republic's got me excited, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first like saw that they were releasing excerpts, it's kind of like that weekly episode you get from Disney Plus for the Mandalorian. It's like, what is it going to be this week? And so I'm super excited to talk about that. But we are going to be, Choco and I, we are going to be in a trivia tournament today at 3 p.m. Pacific. 6 p.m. Eastern time. Link will be in the description below. Just click that at the prescribed time and you'll watch us flail as we try to make our memories work for us. How confident are you? Are you excited?
Confident. Well, I know that you and I are on opposite sides of the tournament, so yeah. Hopefully that means that we will go head to head. I'm confident in a couple of them, but we'll see. My memory often fails me when I need it most.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. It's kind of like when the going gets tough, your memory is just like, not today. I did gain a little confidence knowing that the Proctor, or Darth Finn as he's known on his channel, said that it was just the movies and the shows. So we don't have any kind of second degree knowledge of like the in-between stories, the books, or any kind of canon knowledge outside of having watched the movie. So I'm kind of finding, I guess, a secondhand reason to rewatch everything. And earlier this week I started with Phantom and Attack of the Clones. Just yesterday I rewatched Rogue One because admittedly that's my weakest subject.
Same.
I mean, like, I watched it yesterday. I was like, this happened, and there's a lot of details too that I just didn't catch the first time. And admittedly, I haven't watched that too many times, as much as I watched the other movies. And so the next on my list is Solo, which is what I haven't watched too much of.
Yeah, I kind of feel you there. And I'll be, rechecking quite a few of these out myself. What I have found when it comes to quizzes is your quiz is always biased by the enjoyment of the people making that quiz. Yeah. So whatever properties they like the most is gonna get a little bit more love, and the things that they have the most depth of knowledge are gonna get the hardest questions. So it just depends on if that aligns or not, but we'll see. I did win the last trivia contest that I joined, so
where was that on?
There was no prize though.
Where was that trivia on?
That trivia was just on it bridged just about everything, and it was there's two of us on a team, and I think Battlefront Central was the one that held that tournament. And it was tough because I made a couple of bonehead clicks where I know the answer and I just click something else for some reason, and I had to come from behind and chase the victory, but it was fun.
That's usually how it is. I mean, he's my first opponent in the first round.
Okay. Well,
how much does he know? Give me some juicy details.
Well, he put that one together, so he didn't compete. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. I mean, one thing that I have found about trivia as well, like, especially since you mentioned that it deals with the biases of the person putting it together, like, not to toot our horns here, but I feel like you and I particularly pay attention to a lot of detail and I kind of feel like to some degree I'm overthinking this, and I'm thinking about details that they might include. So I'm like worried that I'm over preparing and I might miss some of the more obvious things that people catch up on or people latch onto when they watch these movies. And so
what would you say is your weakest type of question?
The weakest type of question would probably have maybe something conversational. I don't, because like dialogue between characters, especially if it's not like a very not like a very catalytic conversation where it has something to do with the main plot and it's moving the plot, where if you were to ask me what was this person talking about to this person in the background while Obi-Wan and Anakin were on screen, I'm like, I'm not paying attention to that. So I mean, a lot of conversational elements. I see the details that I pay attention to the most when I'm trying to catch things on like subsequent viewings is numbers, names of planets. Funnily enough, percentages of success rates with the droids, because I know that's a huge thing that they like to do. I think a lot of my knowledge hinges on the fact that their questions are going to be super esoteric, and it's going to be so deep that I'm thinking about what this person was wearing during their time on this planet, and they're just going to ask like, what was this person's favorite drink? And I'm like, I'm going to forget. Particularly, like, I think the most popular drink in the galaxy is like the sorghum drink, right? the bluish drink. What's yours? What's your weakest?
Ooh, so I am going to be in trouble if they start asking about not the movies themselves, but the filmmaking process. Sometimes, some quizzes have questions on what was it? Victoria Vader's quiz, for instance. Who did they originally want to voice Darth Vader? I don't know. I know who they got. It was Orson Welles, and now I remember seeing that in Empire of Dreams. But at the same time, I'm not gonna just pop off with all the actors' names and stuff like that, like some people can. I don't have that knowledge, but if it's in universe lore, I think I should do decently well, but we'll see.
I have confidence in the both of us, but we did confirm that it was just strictly the movies, the anthologies, and Clone Wars, and funny enough, not Rebels. But I think that was just an oversight. They might ask some Rebels, and I might be super disappointed in either of us if we get a Rebels question wrong. But on to our first topic of this episode. We are covering this 8-chapter excerpt that the Random Publishing House released for Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule ahead of its January release. First impressions.
So I didn't know what to expect coming into this, and typically I don't read the excerpts because last time I read one was for the book we just did in the book club, Bloodline. And that excerpt was the beginning of the napkin bombing, which is in the middle of the book, and I was like, come on, man. But this being the first 8 chapters, different story, and I got to see how the story was building up and the amount of consideration that they gave to just the universe in general and the new lore that's being built. I want to see this Jedi fleet and how they fly together, and there's so much really cool stuff in there. I'm really excited.
We're going to try to keep this as spoiler light as possible, but we will be talking about some of the things that we read, so you can skip ahead to our Mandalorian discussion if you don't want to hear anything about the High Republic and these first few chapters of this book. But I was so enthralled by how much of the story I was invested in. Because obviously there was this like cataclysm, or there was this incident that happened. We still don't know what caused it, who was behind it, if there is somebody behind it, but we're kind of like speculating at this point whether or not it was purposefully done. But what the most interesting part about this excerpt is how much of like the outskirts of the universe we're paying attention to, because if you read anything like Lost Stars or Bloodline or Dark Disciple, there's always this kind of centralized focus on one or two characters, and the story focuses or hones in on their story plus characters adjacent to them. But it seems like, and this may or may not be like a curse or a blessing, but it seems like they're kind of jumping around and trying to give us this holistic story about the Hetzel system. And it's quite compelling how much this story just resonates with me, because obviously this is a new timeline, this is a new era. We're unfamiliar with any of these characters. We're certainly unfamiliar with the Hetzel system and its kind of its body of planets, its government, and all of these new characters that surprisingly I was so quick to kind of invest in. But of course, like there's almost this kind of air of sanctity with the way they wrote the introduction of the rescuers, right? And my heart was pumping and my blood was boiling in a good way when I read like this one line, and spoiler alert if you don't want to know what it said, but like this one line at the very end: "This is Jedi Master Avar Chris. We're here to help." And I didn't know if I had heard that line from anyone else other than like Obi-Wan or Yoda or any of the Jedi that we knew already, that I would be so excited. Like when they first came in with that and you knew what was happening, the circumstances, like how did that make you feel?
Before that, I do want to back up like just a little bit, because this part is not a spoiler. Anyone can hear it. But understanding the placement of this and how they were talking about, because us Star Wars fans, we're familiar with the Outer Rim, right? Mm-hmm. That's been a lot of Tatooines out there, and at this time period, they have just reached the Outer Rim. These things are just yes, there are people out here and stuff already, but they aren't connected to the galaxy at large. This is how we view wild space at this point in time.
I think the Outer Rim was like the expansion region at this time.
Yes.
Whereas now the Outer Rim is the Outer Rim, and then the expansion region is a little bit further out.
Yeah, exactly. And so in order to help, because there's no Republic out here or centralize anything, they have a bunch of Jedi that are placed out here on the front lines of this frontier, who aren't super connected back to Coruscant, but they're the ones that you call for help. And I really like that as a concept, because it's I don't know, it'll put the Jedi in a whole new light while giving them a lot of action. So that's the biggest thing that struck me. But there was a moment that got me really excited. It might be too large of a spoiler to really say, but let's just say that there's a line from a Wookiee Jedi who, as they are preparing to deal with this anomaly, he makes a very important discovery about it. That part hit me hard, and I was like, oh shoot.
Was that the part where they were kind of like, control your emotions, and he's like, that's not his emotions?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I love the fact that also there's a lot of them. Now, if we're going back to the prequels and the Clone Wars, obviously we have the Jedi Order and the Council, and we have some adjacent characters here and there who die or take part in the battles. But we have our centralized Jedi Council, Plo Koon, Eddic, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and all of those Jedi. But it's just this bunch of people who are trying to be the rescuers of this catastrophe. I feel like they outnumber the council already. Just these few people.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, we've never had this many Jedi represented together outside of maybe the Army of Light.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, every Star Wars book I've read, and I feel like only the Army of Light from the Darth Bane trilogy is a larger group. But yeah, we're seeing them in full fighting strength, and this anomaly they're dealing with is pretty gnarly. So
diverse too, right? We have I think it's just going off of memory. We have a basilisk who is not Saba 17.
Sadly.
We have a Duros. We have a Wookiee. That's all I can recall. Did we have a Twi'lek at all?
Yeah. Great Storm is Twi'lek, I believe.
Okay.
But even beyond them, we meet some of the people on the planet, and we find out that there's Nautilans here. There is there's a wide range of species, and I think that's really cool as well.
Yeah, it was cool. I think one of them actually was like was talking about how they could read like a person's fears or emotions, and it's always fun to get more kind of like the smaller details in a species, or just know how they are different physiologically to just our pure human counterparts in the Jedi universe. And what's interesting as well about this story, about reading it so far, aside from the fact that there's so much Jedi, is that they are also kind of like a fleet, and I know when we talk about the prequels or we talk about the saga films, every Jedi has his starfighter, and they're off doing their mission in the Clone Wars, but again, this squadron is more Jedi we've ever seen than in all of the prequels, and it's just one squadron. And we have new ships too. We have long beams and vectors.
Vectors are cool.
I can only imagine what these ships look like. I mean, first of all, awesome small detail to prevent identity theft. These vectors need to be activated with the Jedi's lightsaber. I thought it was an awesome small detail. Any other things that stand out at you?
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, using the lightsaber is awesome, and also find out more about their lightsabers and how often they're switching them out and all this stuff, and how ugly this particular character's lightsaber is. But Tiami? With the ships themselves, my favorite ship in Star Wars comes from Legends, and it's the Stealth X. This gives me Stealth X vibes, the vectors, because they are, like I said, it's very little shielding, very very little of anything, and it's meant for Jedi pilots to really be able to use the Force in order to, bring out the fullest capabilities, and them being connected to each other, also brought those feels back of, how all the Jedi in order to make the Stealth Axis smaller and stealth didn't have any communication stuff, or if you did, you were no longer stealth, but they were able to connect with each other and understand where each other were and communicate directions. And we're seeing some of the same stuff here.
That was also very, very awesome. It's compelling to see them explore, even going backwards in the timeline, to explore kind of newish Force abilities. So this has battle meditation vibes all over it.
Yeah.
But Avar Chris, the protagonist in this particular story, is kind of like this beacon, and she sits there, cross-legged, floating, and with energy orbiting her, and she's connecting her whole platoon or squadron of Jedi together, and she's the linchpin of this. And I'm blown away. And as I read that, I'm just like, how powerful do you have to be? Because this is a system here. This isn't just like from Coruscant to, I don't know, Wobani or something. It's like, it's an entire planetary system, right? The Hetzal system. So you're talking from Hetzal Prime to like all these different moons and planets. And you think about being a Jedi and being responsible for being the telepathic link across great distances. And we saw how stamina intensive projection was for Luke to go across galaxy. Imagine doing like connecting to a host of Jedi, like sending out signals here and there and just kind of like staying that connected,
but still having the same the amount of control of, if one person is starting to get overwhelmed with fear and emotion, that can affect the network. So you may have to cut that one individual out, which is also a crazy amount of control. I can't wait to find out more about how it works, and because it's cool. And I'm a sucker for battle meditation already.
Especially, given my favorite character of all of Star Wars, Satele Shan, I've been dying for like a canon portrayal or depiction of battle meditation. I know the circumstances and the situations haven't called for its use, but it's one of those skills that kind of we're used to Force techniques where kind of it's very hands-on. And it doesn't involve anybody externally. You're just kind of using it as a tool or to enhance your combat in some way. But this kind of blanket that you're using the Force to kind of enhance everyone else around you is very, very compelling to me. And when Avar is doing this as just like a network, and as you said, it's kind of like filtering out all of those jittery emotions and stuff like that. It's almost like being a central data center for an internet, and you're just dealing with all of the jitter and the packet loss and stuff, and you're just like, calm down, everybody, calm down, stay still, and just relax. And of
Stay
course,
on target.
Yeah, and that's not even taking into account your own like emotions and your own kind of doubts and stuff like that. And I think it's very interesting, this character itself, Avar Chris, and all of the Padawans and knights and masters in these first 8 chapters is just super compelling. And I really cannot wait for this entire book, because as you said in a previous episode, we have a lot of stories that don't involve Sith, and they're some of the best books in canon, as well as in Legends. And now we have, as far as we know, now we have books in the High Republic that promise not to have any Sith. And I find myself super excited to read these books.
Oh yeah, I'll be there day one. We got Charles Soule and we got Claudia Gray, and that's what more do you want? What more could you need? Both of them are in the story group for the people who develop the High Republic as a whole of what's going to happen, which is super promising to me, because they are excellent story crafters, but this also shows me that they are being recognized for that. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we can get their input on a lot more projects.
Absolutely. And the interesting part about them, right, is that we know their writing chops surrounding characters we know, pockets of time and events that are in between times that we know. So this is the perfect opportunity for them to write an original story, original characters, original time. Granted, there's familiarity in Yoda and Plo Koon and all of the species that are long lived, but like as soon as they introduced, or as soon as Soul introduced Avar Kriss, I was like, yeah, this is his writing for sure. I'm all in 100%. And then for our second mini topic is another High Republic story, which was a little bit of a light read, a couple of panels that were ready to be inked by IDW. It's High Republic Adventures, and it features 2 new characters, obviously being viewed from different perspectives. And then the first character obviously is on a mission with Yoda, which is what I'm already excited for this comic because of Yoda and seeing what they could pull off in terms of Prime Yoda. But what were your first impressions in reading about these 2 characters?
Yeah, first thing that jumps out at me is the character design of Farzala. The character looks like he comes out of Voltron on Netflix.
Wow.
Like there's a real big resemblance there, which excites me because I really loved that. Really love that. That's just a visual thing. I'm excited to kind of be in the other character's shoes and learn from Yoda. That's. Yeah. We haven't seen full on Yoda, young Yoda being someone's master. We got bits and pieces. We know Luke wasn't with Yoda for a whole ton of time, and we got glimpses in the Clone Wars, but it'll be interesting to see exactly how this how our favorite Jedi Master teaches.
Absolutely. I mean, from the prequels to the Clone Wars to the original trilogy, we've only gotten, just certain sections of his training, but we do know that Yoda has trained thousands and thousands of Jedi. And this comic is interesting in particular because, he's actually on a mission with Padawans. And so it's not like he's sitting back at the Order and he's like, oh, do good on your mission, you will. And then they go off, right? He's with them. He's actively teaching this lesson to them. But one of the things that kind of stood out to me was the stark differences in the characters that we were introduced to. In the previous episode with Eggy was talking about how we never have a character who just doesn't know how to fly or isn't already an ace at things. And one of the things that stood out to me, and at least in these first few panels, because there's very little information to go off of, this first character, Lula Talasola, her inner dialogue when she talks about she was born to be the greatest Jedi, and she's kind of showing this kind of self-doubt almost, and we're obviously familiar with Anakin. I'm a pilot my whole life. I'm the chosen one. I'm going to be the greatest Jedi ever. And then Luke, of course, when he heard about his lineage, he was very hot-headed as well with Yoda. But this character, very interesting dynamic, because we're dealing with 2 characters. One character on one side, Lula, who is kind of very doubtful and unsure of her abilities, but yet she has this unrealistic expectation thrust upon her, as all protagonists do, to be the greatest Jedi, but she's kind of unsure of how she's going to achieve that. And then the second character, we didn't get too much of her, or him or her, but they are in a civilization where they kind of forbid the Force, and I'm interested to see how this story plays out and how they kind of their stories intertwine. What are your thoughts on these 2 characters?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat. Lula gives me Jessica Cruz Green Lantern vibes. Yeah, I mean, just being that doubt and being unsure. So I am excited, especially considering it leads us to believe, she's quite capable and quite powerful, but being in a system where the Force isn't allowed, and how is that going to work? Are they going to, accidentally slip into someone's mind and find out things they're not supposed to, and that would be a huge breach and then turn into an incident? Yeah. There's a lot of potential for the conflict, and once again, we're being dropped into a very unique and diverse universe where we aren't. We can't go into it knowing we have no idea what type of conflicts are going to arise from these different factions running into each other.
And I'm like hoping, I'm not, see, it's really hard to hope or speculate around these stories, because like thinking about a person who comes from a place that forbids the Force, but they're very, very powerful and in tune with it, and they have to choose between either cultivating it or hiding it or shutting it away, is a recipe for a Sith Lord to come in and manipulate the hell out of that character. Now, I don't know if this is something that could happen or something that will happen. Do you think the Sith, if they were to kind of sprinkle a little Sith salt and pepper, this would be the area in which they kind of sink their teeth in a little bit? Just a little bit, not like...
Absolutely. I mean, add a little spice.
Yeah.
I would love it if we find out, maybe one of these characters goes missing or is presumed dead, and then in a later book we find out that they are one of the Sith Lords that carries the line upwards. That would be really interesting to me. But yeah, like you're saying, having that juxtaposition between nature and nurture is always a recipe for a good time. I mean, it kind of makes me think of how if for anyone that's caught up on the Mandalorian, we're seeing that a lot of how he was raised versus what he's running into. And that's what makes any character's growth interesting, is you are always certain of something until you run into your first real issue with it, and then you gotta figure it out on your own.
You bring up a really good point. In our previous episodes, we were talking about, and this one was with Eggy, we were talking about how, we don't really need a big bad for an entire saga. If we're going to do like Sith Lords or something like that, they can be there and be defeated rather quickly, or even win rather quickly, and then just in the next movie, we see some resolution in that. But I also kind of like have been thinking lately, over the past week, how we were very concerned about knowing the outcome of things by knowing the prequels and the Republic era. But 200 years is a long time, and the prequels to Rise of Skywalker in total is like 50 years, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot can happen in the High Republic. So if these first few books is just the setup with the Nihil and the Drengir, and what you said, with this character choosing to suppress their gift, and there's this, there's this hidden Sith Lord who's just waiting to pounce and manipulate the hell out of this character and make them into a Sith Lord. It could very well be that these first few books and comics is the Nihil and the Drengir. These are some pretty bad dudes that you gotta take care of at the outset. And then the movie that they release, right? These are just the books and the comics. The movie that Taika Waititi is doing, or the Rian Johnson trilogy, is about this character that goes missing, like you said, and then she was like, "This is the Sith Lord." Oh my gosh, that would be crazy.
And even what I said earlier, how the 8 chapters, this is people coming from this Jedi outpost that is, like we said, not super connected back home. You could have the Sith Lord come and destroy that whole thing? What happened?
Absolutely.
I don't know. They just went silent. There's still a lot of possibility for interplay. That's why I never get too concerned as long as I trust the writers that are involved.
Yeah, and canonically, do we know if like the Rule of Two is actually enacted? I think Bane, that was like maybe 50 years or so. 50 years before prequels?
No.
Okay.
Bane. I mean, at least Legends. Bane was Old Republic era, but so it stands to reason that Rule of Two would be enacted here, still going on.
Okay. So I mean, given the circumstances surrounding why the Rule of Two was put in place, shadows, working in the shadows, we can always have a couple of Sith just lurking.
Just off screen, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to our final topic of this episode, The Mandalorian. What else are we going to talk about? I mean, it's the hottest topic in all of the world right now. Of course, I'm just going to say it straight up. I think both of us, and I think everyone watching right now, completely expected we were not going to see Ahsoka in this episode. Spoiler alert. And that's largely because Dave Filoni is directing the next episode. So, what did we see in this episode? What jumps out at you?
As well as the title of next week's episode.
Do we have that already?
If I'm not mistaken, the title was the Sorceress.
Oh man. When you say the Sorceress, and we think about the last time we saw Ahsoka in Rebels with the staff. Oh my goodness.
Looking like the Sage of the Six Paths.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh man, Hagoromo, is that his name?
I don't even try to pronounce it. I just read it.
Yeah. So like, okay, let's not get into Ahsoka for now, because I was watching an interview with Katie Sackhoff talking about how it was so fun to finally like put armor to body and play the live action version. She's already said, like, and I think this was a gaffe on her part. She had already said that, yeah, we're gonna see Ahsoka. So we're not sitting here saying was that a misdirect? No, Ahsoka is gonna be in this season. So we'll talk about Ahsoka a little bit further out, but talking about this last episode that just came out, The Siege. Ooh, it wasn't about Ahsoka, but it had some huge implications for the universe. What did we learn?
Yeah, so in this one, a great episode. I gotta say, first and foremost, because of how much fun I had with this episode, I don't need cameos from outside of The Mandalorian. Just seeing this group together again was enough. Especially having the bounty from the first episode be their driver, and
Sands, man.
Yeah, it made me happy. But yeah, like you said, there were so many larger implications for the rest of the universe. I had a theory debunked, but with story, like for good reason, and as well as another confirmed, which I was very excited about. But
I mean, I think your initial theory just by itself, like foundationally, still has legs.
Yeah,
but I think the debunked part is just more or less your assurances from last week. Quickly before we get into it, I just want to point out this was Baby Yoda, or the child's first day at school. Moving on. What were you saying?
First of all, that was terribly cute. I am also happy that the child was brought to school and not on this super dangerous mission, because that gives me anxiety. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you said that in the past. Thank God for babysitters.
And as well as I'm trying to understand what age mentally is the child. I'm having trouble pinpointing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with him in the ship, like plugging in wires and stuff.
You know what? If you think about like the physiological difference between species, it's safe. I think it's safe to assume that some species kind of develop on different tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I think his or hers, the child's understanding of what's happening around them is on a higher level. So I would say around like the teenage or maybe preteen level, but socially, toddler, just given the fact of how he acts around macaroons, right? I mean, he certainly wasn't socially, he wasn't socially at the same level as the kids in the class. He was just making noises and just trying to get some food. But I don't think anything. Yeah,
his intake ability is a lot higher than his output.
Yeah, pretty much. That. I mean, I don't know if he understood anything that Din was telling him about the blue and red wires. I mean, he did look like he had some wherewithal to like show the wire and like, huh? And then Din was like, yes, that one. But he was still kind of doing that, and I love this equivalence, or I love this comparison that everyone's making. He had his baby Groot moments with when Rocket was teaching him how to press the buttons.
Oh yeah,
on the remote, and he's like, this one, like, no, not this one, this one, no, not that one. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic with Din and the child to realize that, wow, he's gotten so comfortable with him that it's not like just nap time anymore. They have dinner together. He helps him, crawl through the more claustrophobic areas of the ship. And a part of me is like, you're kind of using the child, but whatever works.
But that's a level of trust that we didn't see in the Mando at the beginning. He would have never trusted anyone to do that. The other thing is, it appears, I mean, the child still has never seen Din's face, but he was comfortable enough to just tip his helmet back when he was drinking that soup. And that's new. You know what I mean? Like, that means he's kind of relaxing on those standards a little bit. So I think that's interesting. We're seeing him kind of get worn down.
It's definitely gonna be one of those slow rolls where he's just like slowly, and then sooner or later we're gonna have a Spider-Man moment where he's just his lower half and he's like drinking and eating. And
Let me look upon you with my own eyes.
And I think overall, Din and the child just really looked like father and son in this episode. Just a lot. Going to school, helping out with the chores, being a handyman. Like, I remember my first time unscrewing my first screw with my dad, so it's like he's a dad now, or at least that father figure. But of course, like, we have the main crux of this episode, and you were just talking about it earlier about your theory. So what was your theory again, if you could reiterate for the audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were talking about the first few episodes of season 1, and I pointed out that when they took the child, they extracted something from it already. And that had already been completed by the time that Din came in and rescued the child. It was completed, and then they said, okay, kill the kid because we don't need him anymore. And I thought that meant. Now I theorize that whatever they're taking from him is being used for Palpatine and for their projects to bring forth the final order. But it's like, okay, if they're done with him, that means the child should be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was right. As long as they had enough genetic material, the child is safe. Sadly, it turns out that they are gonna need some more. So,
so the child isn't safe. I'm sorry, Miss Eggy.
Yeah,
he's the child. They need the child again. You know what? You know what's funny about that thought is that originally in season 1, when they said they had enough and they said get rid of the child, what's gonna happen now? If Din doesn't come back and rescue the child, and you get rid of the child. And now all of a sudden you're on comm saying, "Oh, we need access to the asset again," and then they're just like, "We killed him. What are we gonna do?" You know?
He's dead, Jim.
But yeah, let's talk about the implications. Obviously, the prevailing theory is that they're using the child who has a high M count, which is of course. A euphemism for midichlorians, and we see in the back to tanks what looks like decrepit strand casts of what looks like the closest thing we can come to Snoke. Now, do we have any idea of who the donors are, like given what the body looks like? Do you think
Mace Windu, obviously?
Yeah, I had the same joke about it too. They use Mace Windu's body to create the strand cast of Snoke. Is that plausible, or is that just a joke? I think it's just a joke.
It's just a joke. To me, it is.
So, this is the part of Star Wars that I'm trying to at least increase my knowledge base on, because I strand casts are obviously artificially created bodies versus a clone. And do we know right now if strand casts require a donor body?
So that's something that we do not know. However, I don't believe it personally. Primary reason is that strand casts are created partially through the cloning process, but there's other things that are involved. Mm-hmm. And as we know, the clones didn't all require separate bodies, right? They were all grown from the same sample. But as I gotta be honest, because I've always dismissed it until just now. But honestly, the Mace Windu possibility is starting to become viable. Like, it was so laughable before.
We don't have any canon reference as to where he is, if he even survived. So anything, like, you can't really take it off the table.
We can't take it off the table. However, and also another point, if Palpatine is going to try to start work on this, right? Because we know, obviously, he started work on this well before he died. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna have to reverse that and say again, no, not Mace Windu. Not Mace Windu, because of in the book Tarkin is when we find out that something from outside of the galaxy had been calling to him. He didn't know what that was. But that's one of the reasons that Palpatine erected all these observatories on these far-reaching planets to try and see what's out there. Of course, he couldn't go out there because of the chaos, but he was able to map at least some of it. You know, there's conversations with Tarkin in the Tarkin book. So his knowledge was still growing at that point. Now, it is possible that they retrieved Mace and kept him alive for a couple years, but I can't see Palpatine doing that. But if he was going to try and use someone as a puppet, it would definitely be someone that was powerful enough to defeat him.
You know, I was watching Rogue One yesterday, and they had the CG version of Tarkin. It gave me huge Snoke vibes. And given it's a strand cast, it's not a complete clone. Well, no, Tarkin and Snoke have a similar speech pattern. Not the same voice, but they both have accents. I'm wondering, could Snoke be a strand cast of Tarkin transfused with midichlorians from the child so that he had his admiral back for sensitivity?
That's, I mean, certainly is a possibility as well. But one of the big things that we do know about Palpatine is he was always conducting lots of science experiments, mixing organic with technology. We see all the stuff from Silos 1 through 5 or 1 through 6. You know, that he's not going to give up that technology. And also, I mean, what did he find out from the Night Sisters and from their uses, you know, their uses of the dark side? Or
when I first watched this episode and then I did my breakdown, I was like, oh, we're getting like a sneak peek of secrets only the Sith knew.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, beyond the implications of Snoke's origin, because it was confirmed in the Star Wars book that he is in fact a strand cast and it wasn't some guy that they cloned or whatever. Beyond that is this implication at the very end of the episode, which completely gave me Project Blackwing vibes, was, you know, Gideon is tracking Din. He's going to track him to Corvus, and then he turns around to just these stalls filled with black armored dark troopers. And I'm gonna point it out to you because if you had the captions on, then you know they were called dark troopers. So what do we know about these dark troopers now? Is there anything in canon besides, you know, Project Blackwing and the Death Troopers from Rogue One, or is there any? What are they?
It is well, it's not new, but it is fascinating because of the implications of it. I love that this is the project that is really bringing everyone together, and the fact that, you know, there was a lot of things before that were in the EU, but they were not at the G canon level, right? Meaning that they essentially, George Lucas didn't consider these to be any part of canon. This is just what other people are allowed to write based off of his works, you know? And Disney has been doing a great job because it's being created by fans, bringing in elements that were from video games or from this and that, and making them canon. That's awesome. And this is, and also having ties to Snoke brings us forward to the future. Now, I have had people try to tell me that the Mandalorian is not part of Disney canon.
Oh my gosh.
And I have had people say that they were disappointed that it's connecting to the sequels because they wanted it separate. What are your thoughts to those?
I actually had a comment today that I read where he was like, I really hope it doesn't connect to the sequels because I kind of like it to be its own thing. And my thoughts, short and succinct, I replied, "You're no fun." Plain and simple, it's always been a universe. It's always this galaxy far, far away. It's always connected. You know, it's lived in. It's got people who live on different planets, and some of these stories intertwine together and the timelines will overlap and run into each other. And so there's no way that we're going to get a self-contained story, because eventually when we get into the High Republic stuff and all those stories come out, everything is going to connect as well. All those dots are going to connect eventually. And so I keep on wanting the sequel trilogy to have their Clone Wars / Rebels-esque show. And this is doing just that without being a sequel show. It is a show that is bridging the gaps of information that need to be bridged without being a sequel show. It's all about Mandalorian. It's all about Din Djarin. And wherever his journey goes, should Bo-Katan or Ahsoka be there, they will be there, but it's all about Din Djarin. And these kind of sprinkles of lore that we're getting with how Snoke came about, or how Palpatine perpetuated his decrepit body. And I think you said that in your theory as well. You know, Yoda's blood samples were in his things, in his little crane that he had in the Rise of Skywalker. These are all things that are additive to the experience. And so I don't understand how you can like see these small details connecting the universe and not necessarily taking away from Din's story and being like, oh no, it's all about Rey Skywalker now. What are we gonna do? And it's like, I don't know. I appreciate connected universe, and I appreciate that you can see elements of the universe throughout all of these shows without having the show itself crossing over. Like it's not a crossover.
Yeah, and I think it's personally insane to be okay with acknowledging that that Moff Gideon has the Darksaber, which was last in the hands of Bo-Katan and Rebels, and be cool with that and excited to find out that story.
Yeah.
But be mad that it connects, because that's all Disney Star Wars, you know?
There's a plethora of inconsistencies when we're talking about people who are just strictly unhappy with the sequels or their Disney movies. I mean, everyone was super pumped about Clone Wars, you know, providing the in-betweeners for Attack and Revenge. Rebels providing in-betweeners for, you know, before A New Hope, after Return of the Jedi, in between that and original trilogy. Granted, there were detractors who just didn't like Rebels at all, but I really can't. And this isn't just like knocking people who have this perspective, but I just really can't understand how you could not want the universe to, I guess, tie up loose ends or just be connected.
But personally, my favorite trilogy is the prequels. But if I give you my ranking list, you would not be able to tell. And the reason for that is because of how much the Clone Wars filled in for me, making me love that era so much. And this is the first thing that we have in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, at least as a visual medium. I definitely want more. I want to see Luke in his prime doing stuff, you know. But
yeah, could you imagine? All right, we're sitting here right now, just, you know, we're kind of polishing our glasses about Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano. End of the season, Ahsoka Tano brings him to Luke. What kind of episode are we dealing with? Are our minds and our hearts just gonna explode?
I want it to be exactly the same as The Last Jedi, where he hands the child to Luke, and Luke casually.
Oh my gosh!
Okay, no, that's terrible.
Of course, Luke's not a. I don't know how many years have to pass before he's, you know, on Ahch-To.
Yeah, definitely not yet, because I mean, he was only on Ahch-To for like 6 years, something like that. Yeah.
Do you imagine though? We're sitting here excited about Clone Wars and Rebels characters making cameos. What if Luke actually makes a cameo in Mandalorian? And granted, if he does, I fully expect his cameo to just be like a mention or something, you know, or they land on the planet and they give the child to, we have this like, go on, I don't need you anymore and be free. And it's just Luke, like a silhouette of Luke teaching Padawans in the back, and then Ahsoka's just like, that's Master Luke Skywalker, and we just get that. Freaking crazy.
It would be amazing. But I do have a question for you though.
Okay.
So the great stories are where we have fully fleshed out characters who just want different things, and it comes to a head and they clash, right? Not just a two-dimensional mustache twirling bad guy. Well, what if Bo-Katan in her searches comes across Moff Gideon? She says, I want the Darksaber. That belongs to me. And Moff Gideon says, well, then bring me the child.
Oh my God.
What happens? What happens if that?
I would like to think that Bo-Katan has enough of a heart at this point to, you know what, I can't make any assumptions about Bo-Katan at this point, because the Darksaber is really important to the Mandalorians.
It represents their people, and her goal is to take back their planet and use that to unite all of the Mandalorians.
And
the Empire's all but defeated at this point, so they really could take back their homeworld.
And Clan Djarin or Clan Mudhorn, that's only officially recognized by the Death Watch coverts, or at least the armor.
We don't know if any or how many of them made it off, so we don't even know if anyone.
We do know that the armorer has horns on her helmet, and everyone's noticing this for some reason now.
Yeah, was I the only person that was like, yeah, that's like the whole point?
Yeah. It's interesting to think about at least the Death Watch collective, Shadow Collective part still being a thing even after Return of the Jedi. So we could very well no, Maul is dead, but we could very well see the Shadow Collective here. Like some remnants of the Death Watch from there and remnants of the collective. We may be able to see Kira at some point. That'd be intense. I know.
Did Maul train an apprentice?
Did Maul? Oh my gosh. Do you think, because this is after Return of the Jedi, this is after Twin Sons, the Shadow Collective is now being run by Talon or his apprentice?
There's just so many open doors, right? That I love it, and that's so to me that's where art takes place. You know, there are complaints like, oh, you know, we're limiting ourselves because these are in between these two stories, therefore we must know how it turns out. But honestly, I feel like that's where a lot of great art and great stories take place, is when you have those limits, or when you know, this is a specific medium, you know? Mm-hmm. If you limit yourself to watercolors on an easel, that's a pretty big limitation. You can create masterpieces there.
Star Wars, the best of Star Wars happens when all of the story threads are kind of on like a loom, right? Mm-hmm. Where they're constricted in the direction they go, but there's so many threads. Which one do you choose? You know,
I mean, for a lot of us, the Clone Wars is our favorite piece of Star Wars media, and that takes place between two movies. That's only 3.5 years.
Yeah, And this is why I started thinking over the last week about how 200 years is a lot of time to just do something completely off the walls, 100% full bore. Because it's not like in the next 10 years we have to meet Anakin. It's not like in the next 20 years we're gonna have to, reconcile with the Chosen One prophecy. So there's plenty of time in 200 years, given the original trilogy happens in 4.
I mean, if you look at it this way, both of us are in California, right? The United States is 244 years old. The country. So imagine how many unique stories have happened within the United States between the founding and today. There's a lot of possibility, and even if something happens, there's a great possibility that no one has even known or heard about it, or the story's lost to time.
Yeah, a lot of different arcs, right? We could probably fill the entire history of the United States with like the 20 movie saga. I mean, yeah, there's so much in 200 years. I mean, man, the High Republic could be over a span of 20 years. And there's so much story to tell. So much, so many different characters. And if they have to do a time lapse for, generational leaps, that's still only like maybe 40 years. And then you've got their sons and daughters stories of that. And then another 40 years, you've got their sons and the grandsons and granddaughters, and you still aren't in the prequel era. So
I can't wait till we get to a part and we have someone with the last name Shan.
Oh my goodness.
If we ever hit that part, I'm calling you.
Lest it be Theron and we all have a bad day. But so the Mandalorian, obviously we're getting some answers with Snoke, Palpatine, the secrets only the Sith knew, and next week the sorceress. Final thoughts of this episode for next week. I don't see. So I film my reaction live every week, and I don't know what's gonna happen with me, because I may just melt in my seat. Even as much as I know. As I know.
I feel like you should go live on Twitch. That way, if you're comatose, I can call someone.
Well, I mean, obviously I can't do that for copyright reasons.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can create a Google routine where if I don't respond in time, okay.
Star Wars Life Alert. I like it.
So, just final thoughts. What's the first thing that Ahsoka does, and what is her importance? What does she do, with the child? How does Din interact with her? And given the timing, do we see her with Ezra and Sabine, or just Sabine?
Oh, God, you just kind of broke my brain. But
so let's think about this really quick.
Ezra's not there. He hasn't been saved yet. I have a hard time believing that they're going to bring Ezra back into our regular universe because of the implications of him running into Luke and how that would suss out and not be mentioned at all. I think he would have to either be dead or him and Thrawn are off somewhere doing their thing.
Yeah, I saw a comment in one of my videos today making a really good point. Wherever Ezra is, Thrawn is too. If they find Ezra, they found Thrawn. What's his story?
If anyone's going to uncover the secrets of the Force, it's Thrawn. I would so love to see that.
Could you imagine if they did a transfusion for Thrawn using the M counts? So let's think about this timeline, right? 8 years after Return of the Jedi. By this time,
that would be the first Grey Jedi.
Oh yeah, that's a.
I mean,
I don't like the implications there.
Same, but still.
So
I don't like it, but being non-biased, I'm forced to acknowledge it. You know.
I mean, is he really Grey or is he Ezra?
Everything he does Jedi. Is just. I would like that much better.
So real quick, let's go over this timing. So 8 years after Return of the Jedi, this is when Ahsoka is off searching for Ezra with Sabine. So this is where I'm getting my rationale around Sabine. Where Ahsoka is, Sabine is also. And so you are on the camp that they have not resolved that. They have not found him. And
correct.
They're on Corvus, I guess, taking a break, but they're still searching.
In order to find Ezra. So after Ezra went missing, the entirety of the original trilogy happened. And Sabine was protecting Lothal because of her care for Ezra. And then at the end of that, she got picked up by Ahsoka to go try and find him. Now, they were taken by the Purgle, so they aren't looking for him. They are looking for legends of these, legendary hyperspace, space tentacle whales.
Do they only migrate so far out? Do they have a sector in the galaxy where that's the only place they go?
And that's, I assume that they're like geese flying south for the winter, but they just fly a bit faster.
Okay. So final thought. If they don't find Ezra and it's just Ahsoka, is Sabine with her?
No.
Is this another bet?
No, I'm not going to put money on this one.
I really think, despite whether or not they've resolved the Ezra arc or not, I really think Sabine's going to be with Ahsoka. Because this is the backdoor pilot, right?
This is true.
And so if the Ahsoka TV series is going to at all involve the search for Ezra, they're going to have to bring Sabine in. Am I going to put $20 on Sabine being with Ahsoka?
Okay. So the last bit was a little vague, right? So why don't we make this one be unofficial, right?
Okay.
And since I'm not confident, I'm going to make it $10. So for me, I will say the episode in which Ahsoka is announced is brought on. Sabine is not with her, and you're saying that Sabine, when this happens, Sabine is with her.
Yes.
Okay, that's a direct bet. I feel like
yes. There's no nuance November either, right? And we don't have to be introduced to her, like we don't like Casca and Axe. We don't have to. If I
see her on screen, I'm paying up.
Okay, so because this is why I think so is because. Now, I don't know if you agree with me on this. I think that Casca and Axe are the same two people she was with in Rebels. The female Mandalorian and the big guy Mandalorian when she meets Sabine on Mandalore. And so I put the two frames together of her standing with the female and the male, and then on the barge in front of Din, and I'm like, female, male. That's Axe and Casca. I think that's also Axe and Casca in Rebels. So the same thing here. Ahsoka's gonna be in the shot, and Sabine's gonna be right next to her.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's good. I like it. I'm for it. I think this is the one I'm likely going to lose. But
you're not gonna.
We're introducing that tension. No, I just think
always the possibility.
So there's always the possibility. I don't feel it. I don't feel it. It's a gut thing. So don't ask me.
Nate.
Okay, so before we close up shop, considering the picture you have behind you, gotta ask about Boob Gate.
Oh man. This is the same thing as like the helmet thing where like why do females have like different helmets? And they don't. Those are the night owl helmets. Look at the armor. It's not the same thing.
They can wear whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, where I stand on it is that not being a woman, I don't have the freeness of speech to really weigh in on if it's appropriate or not. I will, however, say of all female fantasy armor I have ever seen, this is the most protection I've ever seen them give to women.
I mean,
comparatively. I would also like to point out that the main person whose tweet started all of this, what is her name, Anita something or whatever, was the main person that started the whole Gamergate thing. And I also believe this could be a question of a person's relevance.
Well, I'm not going to comment too much on function, seeing as you mentioned, we're both not of the female gender. So
as I say, I lack both. I'm not a female and I don't identify as a female, so I lack both the hardware and the software, to have freeness of speech on this.
So what I will comment on is, does it make sense? I think so. And here's at least my as little of the 2 cents that I can give is that I've known a lot of girls in my life who hate corsets, who hate the squeezage of it. And so I would be hard pressed to find a female who is absolutely comfortable in a flat armor that does not at least give some room for them to breathe.
Exist.
Yeah. It's kind of like trying, oh man, I can't believe I'm going to make this equivalence, but it's like trying to wear panties if you've got something there that you need to let breathe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if this really such a big deal? I mean, it's just kind of contoured to let them kind of
be comfortable.
Yeah.
My theory is this: they are not often taking all of this stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
It better be comfortable while you're wearing it. So that's my whole thing.
Yeah, and that's good enough. So was that
edit that whole part out?
No. We're keeping that in. It makes us look human, right? We're talking about things that are uncomfortable, but that'll do it for this week's Dyad in the Force. We're just about out of time, guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe for more, give Darth Choco a follow, his Twitch, his YouTube. You can see all of that down below. Also watch his podcasts he has on Wednesdays. Do you live stream your other podcasts? I know you just released one about cosplay.
Yes, yeah. I mean, those ones are live streamed every Wednesday on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/DarthDroplet7, and they get released the week after. So if you want to be first, then jump on live with us. But also here on Dyad in the Force, feel free to leave if you have any questions for us or anything, please leave them in the comments here so that we can address them in the following week, because we I mean, this is a community. We value that back and forth with everyone. It's really how we get a lot of content, is talking to people. So yeah.
With that said, follow us on TikTok too, at Darth Choco, at _element7_. Leave us a comment there too. We may answer those questions. And with that said, this is the end, and on to the next one. May the Force be with you.